So, good morning, everyone. I am, I borrowed a ball of yarn from my daughter's room, and this is kind of what it looks like. I am looking for the center pole, because that's how I like to work. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it at this point. And today, I'll show you the puppets that I finished and the unicorn puppet that I finished yesterday. And oh my God, what did she do to this? Anybody else have this problem? It's in here somewhere, I know that. I'll show you the unicorn puppets that I finished, or sort of finished anyway. And I guess I'm just going to have to work from the side. The shark puppets that I have finished. And then, again, yarn from my daughter's room. I know the end's in here somewhere. Here it is. So in the past, we've been working on basic amigurumi. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the likes. I appreciate it. And basic amigurumi and how puppets can also be like a basic amigurumi. So when you see all these like fancy stuffed animals and plushies people are making, they're usually just one basic thing. So this is the doll pattern that I have that I like to use. It is just a simple, plain looking doll. And from that doll, I can take and I can make, let me show you. Just from adding different accessory pieces. It's the same doll, the same pattern. I made it out of blanket yarn, and I added ears and the horns and the nose. Thank you very much for all the likes. And then tied a ribbon around its neck and added a bell. And then also that same basic body, I made ears and made a bunny out of it. So most amigurumi and most stuffed toys that you crochet are all going to be starting from one basic pattern. And you could probably go through most amigurumi patterns and find that the first steps or the steps for the like basic body pieces are usually going to be all the same or very close to the same. People complain about stealing patterns. Well, you know what? You can only make a head one way. So if you're making a head for something different, the head part's basically going to be the same. I like my little animals to have like little toes, so I do this differently. Other people do as well. I mean, I'm not the only one that does this. I like my arms to have a little bit of a, let's see better from the back, a little bit of a bubble at the end for like hands and arms. Yeah, once you have that basic pattern, you can pretty much use your creativity to figure out what you're going to put together with them. So before I dive in, because today I'm actually going to take that basic pattern that I have and I'm going to turn it into a giraffe, which is easier than you think. I have to find my, oh, there it is. I know. I'm sure I have sketchbooks, I have notebooks full of notes. However, this one I did type up. I did put a copy of the pattern on my website. It is free. If you click on my link tree, the link to the pattern site's right there. And so far I have 2 links from the pattern that give you the instructions how to make the ears. And then I have another link on that pattern site that gives you the instructions to make the ears, horns, and nose for the cow. Those are all free. And they are on my website. You can go to my link tree. You can either click on my website or you can click on the pattern and you can go right to the pattern. And it's basically, this is the one that I made out of worsted weight. This is the size it ends up being if you make it out of blanket yarn that's side by side. If you want to make teeny tiny dolls, you could use it like cotton thread and it would make the dolls smaller. If you wanted to actually make a doll, you could just add some hair and like a dress. One of these days we'll do that because I'll show you how you can actually incorporate the clothing as just by like a color change and some ruffles to make like a dress. But today I'm going to work on a giraffe. So I'm going to start with my end that I found here. Again, this was all my yarn I bought for my daughter. She was going to make bees and then decided she wasn't going to. So, all of my patterns, they do start with a magic ring or a magic loop, whatever terminology you want to use. And I did want to say that all the terms that I use in my crochet are American terms, not UK terms. They're a little bit different. And working with the blanket yarn, sometimes when you do like the amigurumi, you would use a yarn under method instead of yarn over. You would actually pull your yarn under to do the stitch. You would actually put your into the stitch. It's hard for me to show you this way, but you would into the stitch, and instead of doing a yarn over, you would put your hook on top of the yarn and pull it under. It makes your stitches a little bit tighter, but I find with the blanket yarn I don't have to do that because they are tight enough. So this was the first round. And again, if you want the pattern, free pattern on my website, you can go to my link tree and there is a link that takes you right to the pattern. My shop is a totally different site. 3, 4, 5, 6. And I like my bobby pins for stitch markers. But my website's, it's not really a blog site. It's just more like a portfolio site for people that are looking to see what I've done in the past. And I do have a gallery page that has things that I've made in the past. It has a shout outs page for people that I've made patterns from, that I have my finished pieces with a link to their pattern. And then I added the new pattern page that has this body. Eventually I'll put the puppets on there. I forgot to grab the shark puppet. But yesterday we were working on the unicorns. And I didn't get the eyes and everything done, but I did get the mane trimmed and put on. So I got that done. And the sharks, I have a shark here too. I have my sharks totally done as well. I can get 3 sharks out of the skein of yarn that I got. So it's my little fins and my 3-dimensional teeth. All of these lives I'm uploading to, in the process of uploading to YouTube. So hopefully by the end of the week I will get them all there. I have maybe about 10 more to do. But I've started to keep track of exactly what I've been doing in which podcast, so that I can put that into the description. So like if you were looking for shark's teeth, I could put shark's teeth in the description. But the same with the basic body. I have basic puppet patterns, and I'm going to try to get those up sometime, hopefully this month. And it's just without the tail and the fins and everything. It's just a basic puppet body. One has a pointed nose, so if you want to make sharks or ducks or foxes or something with a pointed nose, and then the other basic pattern is one with a rounded nose. If you want to make like unicorns or cows or goats, things like that. Most of my patterns I freehand. Some of my patterns I will purchase just because I'm being lazy and don't feel like thinking. But now onto the giraffe, because I'll show you how I take this body and I will turn it into a giraffe instead of a bunny or a cow. So it is very, very basic. All my patterns again start with a magic ring or a magic loop. I also include instructions for the chain 2 method. So you would chain 2, and then this is 6 single crochets in the first round. You would just put your 6 single crochets in the second chain from the hook, and then you would continue from there. They're worked in spirals. They're not joined with a slip stitch chain 1, so you don't have that seam that you get from your joining your stitches. You just simply have your stitches that keep going around in spirals. So that's one of the reasons why I use the bobby pins to keep track of my rounds, because if I lose count and I sort of know what round I'm on, it's kind of hard when you don't have like a start and an end point and it's just going around in circles. What I do want to mention is when you work with a magic ring like this, I don't care who says what, when you work with a magic ring, you have to secure the end. I don't care if you loop it around twice. I don't care if you loop it around 3 times. If you work with a magic ring or magic loop, you have to secure it. And this is how I secure it. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches. So this is my 6th stitch. And this is the chain, the initial chain on the side that I did with my magic loop. So once I get that first round done, before I continue around in my spirals, I will pull my back tight. And once my back is tight, I'll usually take a smaller hook and put it through that chain 1 that you did at the beginning of your loop. And I pick up the tail of my yarn, I chain 2 and pull that tail through, and then I just slide that knot down. It's a little bit difficult to slide with a blanket yarn, but you can, if you're careful, slide it without snapping it. And once you have that knotted, that secures your magic ring or your magic loop, and then you can just continue around and not just continue around, but if you then wanted to crochet over top of this, you could. Now if you use the chain 2 method to start your ring, you don't have to secure it like that, but you'll find it leaves a gap, like a little hole where the stitches aren't tight around the center. You can always leave that tail open instead of weaving it through, or working over top of that tail. You can leave that tail open or hanging, and then at the very end of your work, or after you've done a couple of rounds, you can take that tail and then weave it back and forth and kind of pull it around tight and knot it to secure it so that there isn't that gap in that hole. That's how you would do that if you did chain 2 method. But I'm on the second round of this, which is just increased to 12. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it's my first 2 rounds. Your amigurumi is usually always going to start with just a basic circle. So I'm going to go from 12 and I'm going to single crochet to 18. So I'm going to single crochet 1 and then increase and repeat that around. How is everybody today? Thank you everybody for joining. Blanket yarn is not my favorite to work with, but I do it anyway. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. It's raining here today. Good morning, Janie. This morning I am working. I put those puppets aside. I need some sort of lesson plan or some sort of organization before I do any more of those. So I've decided that I'm going to take my doll and show you how I would make him into a giraffe. How is everybody this morning? It is raining here. Rained all night. Somewhere in the mid-40s, which I guess is a whole lot better than the snow that it could have been. Okay, so now I've done 18, I'm going to do 24, so I'm going to single crochet 2, and then increase. Again, I'm not fond of blanket yarn, but I use it. There you go. Did I get that in a stitch? 1. I must have stitched that or twisted that. Stitch 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I know this is the boring part watching me. 12. Well, Shirley, thanks for joining us. Hometown of Tony the Tiger. I'm not sure where that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. So for those of you that are just joining us, I'm showing how basic amigurumi is made, and this is the basic doll. And from the basic doll, you can take and you can add pieces to them. Same doll, just made with blanket yarn, and I added big floppy ears for the bunny. I added pieces for the cow. And that basic doll pattern is available on my website for free. It's just, if you go to my link tree, there is a pattern link there, and it takes you right to that free pattern. I also have links on that site that you can click on that you can get the accessory pieces to make the cow, like the horns and the nose. Horns and the nose and the ears. I also have accessory pieces up on that website for my bunny, It is not a blog site. It's not a monetized site. It's just my personal portfolio site. So when you go to it, Battle Creek, Michigan. Oh, okay, cool. Northeast Ohio. But yeah, when you go to it's not a blog site. It's not. There's not a ton of ads. There's not a bunch of clickbait. And for those of you that are new to joining us, the huffing that you hear is Sir Charles, my chocolate lab, who yesterday he left me alone the entire time. Never came over. Never came out of his room. And today, there he sits. Yeah. I guess you went out. I think I get everybody settled and I sit down and then it's not. 30 seconds. Not even 30 seconds. I'm almost to the point where I'm going to mark for the eyes, and once we mark for the eyes and start going down around the neck, that's how I'll show you how to do, how you would make this into a giraffe. It won't take me long, but let him out. I'll be right back. Want to go out? Do you have to go out? Do you want outside? Come on. That was a great big nope. I opened the door, and he turned around and ran. And he already got a bone full of peanut butter, so he's not getting any more than that. Okay, so I should have 24 stitches here. Let me count them to make sure. 6, 9, 12. Let's see. Do I have 24 stitches? 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 14, 24. Okay, I have 24. So, just to pull the head down a little bit further, instead of increasing by my 6 stitches again, I'm only going to increase by 3 stitches this time. So, I'll crochet 7 and then increase. So it'll take me from 24 to 27 stitches, and I'll start bringing the head down a little bit more. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh my God. It's my daughter for you. I took this ball of yarn from my daughter and I thought I had the end of it. I could knock her out. Not really. Love her. She's great. I guess I'll take this opportunity to show you how I graft my yarn together, if anybody's interested. It's not that difficult. It's not as hard as it looks when some people show it. You are basically going to take her drawing board here. You might be able to see a little bit better. Okay, so you would basically take your 2 pieces of string. She's got a knot there. I'm going to cut that out. You would take your 2 pieces of string and show you how I graft my yarn together. You would take your 2 pieces of string, okay, and basically what you're going to do is you're going to take this piece and tie a knot around this piece, and you're going to take this piece and tie a knot around this piece, and when you tie those knots, you want the tails to be facing in the opposite direction. So when you take this piece and you tie your knot, you want to make sure, I'm trying to make sure I get that in there, you want to make sure that you tie your knot so your tail is pointing upwards. So your tail's pointing upwards. So you tied that one off. Let's pull out a couple of those stitches. And then you're going to take the other side and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to tie a knot around this string with this string, but you want to make sure when you loop your knot, the tail pulls in the opposite direction. So you would just wrap it around like you were going to tie a knot around it, and you want to make sure when you do it that you pull your tail up this way, so your tail's going that way. So now you have your knots tied around. You've tied a knot with this one, with the tail going this one. You've tied a knot with the other side, with the tail going towards that side. And now when you pull these together, you can pull this tight, and when you pull these together, it will naturally want to tighten. So no matter how you pull it, once they're together, it's gonna stay tight. But those of you who have been here that know me well, I like my glue. So I will actually take, and I don't know if you can see it with the blanket yarn, right in the center where I've pulled those, where I've pulled that knot together so far. Before I completely pull it together, I will just kind of take the tiniest bit, and it is permanent fabric glue. I'll take the tiniest bit, not even like a pinhead's worth, and then I will continue pulling those knots to each other. And I don't want to keep pulling them, because if I keep pulling them to show you how hard you can actually pull it, the blanket yarn will snap. But once you've tied those knots in that way, you can actually clip those ends super, super close. Because again, no matter how hard you pull it, those knots are going to keep trying to tighten as you pull it. So that's how I join my yarn. Sorry I had to do that. I guess that's what I get for using a ball that I recycled for my daughter. Sorry, I moved my camera. It just kind of bounced around. Oh, dog. Sir Charles, if you now tell me you want out, we might have to fight. Okay, so I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, oops, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then I'll do my increase, 8, 9, and then I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and increase, and one more time, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and increase. You can see where that knot is, and it kind of fell to the back. Even if it didn't fall to the back, you could just push it through to the back and you'll never see it. And when you use, instead of doing it that way, the joining the knots, yeah, I like to join my knots that way. I don't know if it's called, because my son uses a knot that's very similar that tightens as you pull it. Like it just, if you tie a regular knot and you pull it, it will eventually unravel. This one actually tightens as you pull it. I'm not 100% certain of the name of the knot. He uses it to tie down his kayaks. I think it's called a trucker's hitch, but I'm not real sure. Again, we are taking the basic amigurumi doll, adding pieces to it, and with those pieces, thank you very much. With those pieces, you can pretty much turn this basic doll into anything. This one, I'm going to show you how I would turn it into a giraffe, even though it's a squat little gingerbread guy. The pattern, this is an even round, so I'm just going to do it while I'm talking to you guys. The pattern is a free pattern on my website. My website is basically just a gallery portfolio page. It's not a blog. It's not monetized. There aren't ads popping up all over the place. I don't have my videos linked, although I have started uploading all my lives to YouTube as like a Nifty Knots podcast. Thank you very much, everybody. So if you see something that you wanted, and I'm trying to keep track of what I do in each one of them, I'm writing them down because I'm starting from the beginning, and it's been about 2 or 3 weeks, so that you can see what I did in each or read what I did in each podcast if you want to playlist, whatever. If you want to go back and rewatch it to see the things that I had done. But again, if you go to my link tree, this right here is the basic doll. There are pieces, patterns for the different pieces. Also, if you want to put them together, and it is free. And okay, so that was my 27 around even. So in this round, I'm going to mark my eyes, where I'm going to put my eyes. Oh, here's my other string. I had 2 contrasting pieces here. So for this round where I'm going to mark my eyes, and I'll explain this a little bit, so if you do go get the pattern, you're going to, this step is single crochet 6, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and after you've crocheted your 6, you're going to lay a piece of scrap fabric there and crochet a marked stitch. After you've crocheted the marked stitch, you're going to crochet 4 more. 2, 3, 4. After you've crocheted those 4 more, you're going to crochet 1 more marked stitch. Then again, I just took my piece of scrap yarn, I laid it next to my stitch, and then I single crocheted in the next stitch, and that made my marked stitch. And that's where I know I want to put my eyes. And then the rest of it is single crochet 15 more. 2, 3, 4. Undo the knots that my daughter had in the yarn. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I'm laughing at my dog. He tends to be, he wants to be, I guess, I don't know, known today. I don't know, jealous. He'll sit there on the couch. I'll throw some blankets on the couch, and he'll sit there on the couch sometimes and look at me and huff, and I think to myself, in your past life, or if that's such a thing, like, were you some little old lady that liked to knit and crochet, and now you're just like aggravated that you don't have thumbs, so now you sit here and like do this to me while I'm trying to do this? But you're a good boy. Yes, you are. Now, do you have to go outside? Oh, he makes me crazy. Let's see if I can get him to go outside again. Because then I'm just basically going to do 2 more even rounds, and then I'll show you how I put my eyes in. So that'll give me an opportunity to grab a scrap of my Pellon, because I do use Pellon to keep my eyes so they are truly secured. Here, I'll give you some company, although I have my Bluetooth in, so you should still be able to hear me. I use little scraps of Pellon that are, it's like a stiff interfacing. Come on, Charlie. You have to go outside. It's a stiff piece of interfacing that I put behind my safety eyes when I put them into my head. That way, and then I put some glue underneath them, and that way it doesn't, like, you can't pull them. It makes them even more safety than they originally were. And then I also have another trick for eyes, which is I've already gotten eyes that... Okay, I'm back. Can you guys still hear me? I'm hoping. You guys should have been able to hear me while I walked around. But the Pellon that I use is... It is number 926. Sorry. Shaking more than I'm shaking. The Pellon that I use is number 926, and it is a thicker weight. I don't know if you can see, it's a thicker weight, and there is no fusible side to it. It's one of the only weights that don't have a fusible side to it. So when I use it for sewing, I actually have to use a piece of Wonder Web or Wonder Under or something like that to secure to my fabric, because I don't like to sew in. I want to just iron it and be done with it. So let me do my 2 even rounds. And I'm going to leave my stitch marker there just so that I know I'm doing 2, because I'll sit here and talk. But yeah, raining. I'll take it. The only problem with the rain today is we have a gentleman in the neighborhood that we've done favors for. And we've helped out, and we've given him some business through referrals. Able to do that because what my husband does for a living. So, you know, he's given him a lot of referrals, a ton of referrals. So he came over and he knew that we wanted trees down in our yard. They are very big maple trees, and they were very close to our house. So he slowly but surely, we said, you know, because he's asked, can I have the wood? Can I have the chips? Because I guess he can sell a dump truck load of chips for so much money, and he can sell the wood as firewood up around here because there's a lot of people that come to camp. So now I have this gigantic tree laying in the middle of my yard that is half cut up. And part of the deal is my husband has a chainsaw, so he goes out there and helps him. The gentleman that does it does most of the, does all of the, like, calculating and cutting of the tree, felling of the tree, because that's, like, what he does. And he's crazy. Like, he just, like, climbs up those trees. He loves it. And talk about being able to throw something with aim. He can take the ropes and he can tell you exactly what branches he's pitching through. And no matter how many branches are on that tree, he gets them exactly where he wants them. It's pretty damn amazing. The other thing that's amazing is he can put it down exactly where he wants to put it down. I had one tree that was right next to my blueberry bushes. And I just kind of was like jokingly saying, well, I guess I'm going to have to replace my blueberry bushes. And he looked at me, he looked at that tree, and he says, that tree is going to go right in between those 2 bushes right there, and you won't have to worry about them. And that was exactly what he did. he put that tree right in between those blueberry bushes, and both of them are still alive and growing. So he's pretty amazing, and I'm very grateful for him because I don't know, without him, we would have been able to have those trees taken down because they were very big, very old maples. And there's still a couple more, but that just slows progress down now because I know he will take most of the wood. He'll take probably 75% of it, and he'll leave us with a little bit for, like, when my kids come up, if they want to do campfires and things. But he'll take the majority of the wood, and he'll sell it as campfire, and then he uses it to heat his house. So he likes to climb trees. All right, let Sir Charles in, and then, because he's out there barking, and then as soon as I get in, I will do my 1 round of decreasing. And then after I've done my 1 round of decreasing, I will show you how I put my eyes on. Good boy. And then we are almost to the point where I can show you how to elongate the neck so that, thank you guys for being patient. Sorry, every time I move around I bump that goofy thing. Okay, so I did my 2 even rounds, and now I'm going to do my 7 stitches and decrease. So 1, 2, gotta have my bobby pin because I chatter so much. 4, 5, 6, 7 that I will totally lose count. And then I'll spend all this time doing all this and showing you all this, and when I shut off my camera, I'll end up having to rip it all out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 1 more decrease, and 1 more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2 stitches left to do my decrease, so I know my count is right. Now, once I've got it to this point where I'm starting to decrease the head again, I'm going to go to the front and I'm going to put my eyes in where I have my marked stitches. So I have my pell on. Let me grab my eyes. These are smaller. I think I'll use bigger ones for my giraffe. Let's see. Not super big ones, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Big enough for giraffe? Or should I use... Oh, maybe I'll use these. Give my giraffe some bigger eyes. Okay, and then I have my washers. I do want to say before I show you how I put these on that if you've ever ordered eyes without washers, like if they come and you're like, oh my god, where are the washers? How do I put these on? Because I had ordered noses and they didn't come with the washers. I was a little bit disappointed. So I went to the hardware store and was able to find flat nylon washers. No, you can see them. Flat nylon washers. And I took my eyes with me. Like, these eyes are too big, but the ones, oh, here's the noses I have. So the noses I got did not come with the washers. So I found these little nylon washers at the hardware store and they were like a couple pennies a piece, and they fit right down over top of there. And when I put my safety eyes on, after I put my washer on, I burn the top of this so it creates a cap over top of my washer anyway. So the fact that this doesn't click or stay in place isn't really going to matter because I'm going to burn that down over. So if you ever get safety eyes without washer, or without the the things to secure them and snap them on, these little nylon washers you can find at the hardware store, and then just burn your ends over top of them so it creates like a bubble over top of the hole so that it can't slide through. Works just as well. As a matter of fact, sometimes I think it works better because it's not as bulky when I'm making like puppets. But let's see here. I have my eyes and I have my Pellon. So I'm going to take my Pellon pieces, grab my scrap jar, and you see my Pellon pieces are a little bit bigger than it's a lot bigger, but I'm going to take them and I'm going to trim them down so they're rounder so that I don't have corners sticking out of stitches. And this is how I like to do my safety eyes when I do blanket yarn, because blanket yarn kind of leaves a bigger hole. Even if you yarn under, it leaves a bigger hole in between the stitches just from the nature of the stitches. And I like to make sure that my eyes aren't going to be pushed in and lost or pulled out by somebody that's like chewing on it. It is a toy, and you never know. Okay, so once I have my cutout for my eyes, my Pellon cutout for my eyes, again it's Pellon 926. It's not fusible. I guess it wouldn't matter if it was fusible. Just anything that's got some sort of like stability to it. You wouldn't want like a shirt interfacing or a mid-weight interfacing. You'd want something that was a little bit heavier. And I'm going to take that, and since the eyes don't poke through it real easy, I am going to put a hole through it. Those are pretty big. So once I have my hole through it, and yeah, that's the tool I like to use. I found it worked better than my scissors or anything else. I will take my eyes one at a time, and I'm going to put them where I had my marked stitches. And that eye's pretty big. The chances of it getting pushed or pulled in or out are probably pretty slim, but I don't want to take that chance. So after I've put my eye where it needs to be, and I'm going to do both of them at the same time actually. So after I've put those eyes where they need to be, I'm going to flip it inside out. And then I'm going to take my piece of Pellon and I'm going to snap it down over the first little notch there. And it'll hold it in place. And then I'm going to snap it down here. The other one, until it just pops down that first time. I don't want it to be too tight because then it'll kind of disappear into the fabric. So once I have my safety eyes with my Pellon interfacing on the backs of them, then I would snap my washer down, and I just snap it down once. This is why I don't have any fingernails this month. So much for a manicure, although I do my own. So I snap that down, and then I always have a lighter on standby, so I will then take that eye. I know it scares some people, and it scared me at first too. I will take that eye, and you can see it melting. And it will actually kind of catch on fire. Once it does, I let it burn for a few seconds. Blow it out and cap it with the lighter. And you can see when you cap it with the lighter, I'll show you when I take it off. It makes that the black part from the eye, from the post from the eye, bigger than the hole from the safety eyes. And if you wait until it's cooled off a little bit, that'll just pop, it'll just snap right off. If you try to take the lighter off before it's cooled, and you can see how it's now made the black part bigger than the hole in the washer, so that eye is definitely not coming out of that washer at all. I like this idea. I never thought of doing this. Well, thanks. Years. I've been doing this for years. When I was, my mother insists somewhere around 5 or 6. I usually say 10 to just kind of give it, but I won't tell you how many years I've been doing it, since I just told you how old I was when I was doing it. Although you can see my hair needs dyed. It's all gray. But yeah, I grew up, so I'm going to do the same thing with the next one. I grew up, my mother was a seamstress in a dress shop, and that's what she did for a living. So I learned how to sew, and once a week we would go to my grandmother's house for dinners, and like family dinners, you know, all my aunts and uncles. I have a couple of aunts and an uncle. So we would all get together, and then we would, all the women would sit and crochet. And you can see again on that one how once you burn it down and push it, it becomes bigger than the hole that it's coming out of, and it's not coming out. Now, but that's where I learned how to crochet, just kind of watching everybody and picking up the hook and doing it. So now that I have the eyes this way, since the holes in this are so big, there's really nothing stopping anybody from pushing that eye through the hole. So to eliminate that chance, I should ask to sponsor them. Wouldn't that be fantastic, since I use enough of it. I use so much of it that I had to go out and buy some more, so I have a whole new bottle. I have 5 kids, so when I make things like this, I've learned to do things so that I know that eventually you're going to pull this toy out of a load of towels in the dryer and go, oh, no, and it's still going to come out fine. That's how I like to make all of my stuff. So anyway, back to the glue. It is Fabric Fusion. It is permanent fabric adhesive. And then I take that permanent fabric adhesive and I go underneath getting to the end of it, and I go underneath my Pellon with a pretty good bead of glue there, and I go all the way around, so that once it's stuffed, and I do that with both of them, so that once it's stuffed, you're not going to be able to push it through, because this Pellon's going to be glued and fused to the fabric itself. And trust me, when you turn it inside out, you won't be able to tell. But what I am going to do, because I have so much glue on there to make sure that it stays, I'm going to actually take my knot and glue my knot as well up here, and the knot where I had to join. I'm just going to put a little bit of glue over that. Eventually I have to break out the new bottle. A little bit of glue over that, a little bit of glue where my knot is, over here. And these are just things, you don't have to do these things, but I like to do them because I like to make sure that nobody's coming back to me and going to say, oh, you know what, my daughter threw that in with a load of towels and it came out and it fell apart. Not going to happen. So now that I've put all my glue everywhere, I don't want to just flip it inside out, because if I flip it inside out, I'm going to get glue all over my hands. So I take my stuffing and I just kind of wad my stuffing over all the parts that I have the glue, so that I can then push it right side out without getting all the glue on my fingers. Because then I have to go wash my hands if I get glue all over my fingers, and I don't want to do that. So I use my stuffing to help push it down. So there's my head almost done. So we've got, let's see, I added my eyes. We're going to decrease back down to 18, which would be 2 single crochets and a decrease. So 2 single crochets and a decrease. So it's 3 stitches, 2, 3. Always mark my stitch. But, oh, that must have made Sir Charles happy because he went to go lay down. Yesterday, he never came out of the bedroom. He just stayed and laid on his pillow and just sat there and watched me, which I thought was odd. Today, he came out huffing and panting at me. I usually do a center pull. Where am I? 1, 2, decrease, 1, 2, decrease, 1, 2, decrease. I usually like to center pull my yarn, but my daughter wanted this yarn to make bees and then decided she wasn't going to do bees. So I told her since she had it sitting in her room, I was going to borrow it and show you guys how to make a giraffe today. 2 and decrease, and that came out even. So I know my stitches are right. And the next one is going to be 12, so I'm going to single crochet and I'm going to decrease. Single crochet and decrease around, and that's going to give me 12 stitches. I do an invisible decrease and increase when I'm doing things like this because it eliminates the bumps and the holes. Like you'll get holes from putting 2 stitches into 1 stitch, and you'll get bumps from trying to gather 2 stitches together. And if you work through the front loops and the different loops a little bit differently, you it's hard to show in the blanket yarn. But when I do a decrease, instead of putting through the stitch, yarn over, putting through the stitch and yarn over, what I will actually do is I will pick up the front loop from the next stitch, pick up the front loop from the second stitch. I will yarn over and pull through those 2 front loops, and then I will yarn over and pull through to complete my decrease. And it eliminates like that bump you get. And then when I do an invisible increase, instead of working both of my stitches into the same next stitch, I would take that next stitch and I would work one of the increased stitches in the back loop, one of the increased stitches in the front loop, and it eliminates that it eliminates that like overstuffing of that stitch and giving it that like extra big hole. So now I have 12 stitches. Now my necks aren't all that big. I think 12 stitches is a good one. So I'm going to stuff this head a little bit more. And I don't want the neck to be super long. I just want it to be long enough that it sort of looks like a giraffe. And that's where the creativity comes in. It doesn't have to be, just like if you look at Amigurumi and other crochet dolls or toys, even ones that are manufactured and made, they're not the same proportion as a human being. Like you can fit 8 heads in, a human being is like 8 heads tall. Typically your Amigurumi, your head is the same size as the rest of it. Maybe it can be a little bit smaller than the rest of it, or you know, a little bit smaller than this. But if you don't make your stuffies with your bodies and your arms smaller, and you try to make it proportionate, it looks funny. Like, it doesn't look like a stuffed animal. So the next time you're out, look at that. Most of the stuffed animals that you see and the plushies you see, the heads are significantly bigger than a normal proportionate human being or a normal proportionate animal. And that's just so it looks right, because the majority of what you're looking at when you're looking at your piece is going to be the head and what it's supposed to be. And the rest of it just kind of fills in space. I don't know if that makes sense, but okay. So if you were following my basic body pattern, this would be it. This would be the head. And that would be it. You would go on to do the rest of the body. And this pattern, again, this is the one on my website. This pattern works through the head, works down around the body, leaving 2 holes for the arms. It works around one leg, and then you fasten it off, and then you reattach and you crochet around the second leg, fasten it off, and then you reattach at this hole and you crochet around and you crochet around. So you're not really making the different pieces, you're just crocheting everything together, so it's not sewn together. The only thing you would have to really sew on is any accessory pieces. Okay, so now to make this into a giraffe, I think I'm just going to do 5 rounds of my 12. So 1, 2, 3. I'm not going to count these. I just have my stitch marker there, and I'm just going to keep going around while I talk to you guys. But by doing those 5 extra rounds, I'm just going to elongate the neck. And then I can show you how I do start the arms and the body. Because again, the body is going to be the same size. It's the same pattern. I'm just going to add extra rows. And it's 1 row. This will be the second row. And you guys are pretty much watching me do it as I figure it out. So I'm going to, so that's 2. I think I want it to be a little bit bigger than that. Eight, 9, 10, 11, 12. I will find the center pole to the yarn when I'm done with, as soon as I finish this off in the first place. So this is 1, 2, 3. So I'm working on my 4th extra one. I don't want to put too many extra rows because I don't want my neck to really get floppy. But I just want it to look a little bit more elongated so it looks a little bit more like a giraffe. So this is 4 rows. 4 rows. You can see how, oh, that's a good view there. You can see this is where my stitch marker is, where it starts, and you can see how your, when you work in spirals, your stitches will shift. So sometimes when you do that, you kind of have to squash it. So since I am elongating the neck, I'll show you what to do to squash it to make sure you get the arms where they're supposed to be. And I did, yeah, maybe I'll do. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. What do you think? Maybe a fifth row, just to make them a little bit bigger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I will tell you that my old brain just disappeared. Oh, when I do finally get to manage to put the accessory instructions in there for the giraffe, I will put a note in there to read the instructions before starting the head, or at least before starting the neck, because you are going to have to finick with it a little bit. So I added 5 extra rows, which is all I did, was add 5 extra rows of the smallest round from the neck. So now that I did that, I'm going to start increasing again for the body. So I'm going to single crochet, and then I'm going to increase. And now, since I'm done with my even rounds, I'm going to move my stitch marker so that I can keep count. So it's 1 and increase, 1 and increase. Oh, here I can show you the increases. 1, I will find the center pole to that. Do you knit 2? I do actually knit 2. I knit, crochet, sew, tat, pretty much anything you want to do with string, I can manage to get it done. Crochet is my favorite though. That's the first thing I learned how to do, and it's what I can do the most with. Knitting I can do a lot with, sewing I can do a lot with, but I really like to crochet. There's something like organic about one hook and one knot at a time that I really, really like. So to do my invisible increase, I would take my stitches, and I know it's difficult to see, but this would be the next stitch that I would go into. So I would put the first stitch, get my needle, a smaller needle. So since this is the next stitch, I'm going to try to do this just looking at the camera. I would put my first stitch in the back loop, and then I would pick up the front loop, and I would put the second stitch in the front loop, and that would still give me 2 stitches for this one stitch. And then just make sure this stitch does, the next stitch beside it doesn't disappear, because sometimes when you put 2 stitches, one in the front and one in the back, your next stitch tends to disappear a little bit because it is a little bit wider, but you won't get so one in the back loop. I find it easier to pick up my front loop this way. So it gives you that increase without a hole where you would normally have 2 stitches in one stitch. So let me finish this round. Couple more stitches here. And the next round is going to increase one more. There's one more increasing round. So I'm going to do 2 stitches this time and an increase to give me 24 stitches, and then I'll divide them up for the arms. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, And then I'll show you what the shifting of the stitches and how you kind of have to alter it a little bit, why that's important when you're adding rows to a spiral. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and then it might increase 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Okay, so now if you just read the pattern, so I have 24 stitches, which is going to be 6 divided by 4, 24. So you're going to have 6 stitches that you're going to work an arm, 6 stitches that you're going to work the front, 6 stitches you're going to work another arm, 6 stitches you're going to work the back. I know I did that backwards, but since you added some rows, it's going to shift. My pattern takes into consideration the shifting, but not for the giraffe. So I will add that to the notes. After I do it a few times, I'll know how many stitches I need to add because of that shift. Because again, like you can see, your stitches kind of go this way, so they're going to shift a little bit. So I'm going to take this because I know that I want to skip 6 stitches on the side. So I want my arms to be even. So I'm going to look for my center stitch. It's right in between my eyes here. I can do this a little bit better. So I'm going to squash my body, and I'm kind of going to look for the midpoint. And I've got 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They would be my body stitches. So I'm actually going to take those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'm going to hold on to those because that's where I want my first stitch to be. But I only want to skip 6 stitches for the arm. And if you look, because of the way the fabric has shifted, because your stitch will always shift over a little bit when you're working a spiral, I'm holding on to the 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This would be my 6th stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 would give me 6 for the arms. So you see, because I've added those extra stitches, or those extra rounds, I actually have to add one more stitch to bring it to where I need it to be. So I will add the one more stitch. And again, most of my patterns, I do them so many times that I write the, finish to the end of the round, single crochet 3 more, then begin. I usually try to compensate for that. Okay, so now to do the armholes, I'm going to take that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches, and I'm going to skip them. And I'm just going to bring my yarn around. Get this out of here. So I'm going to skip my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for my arms. And I'm just going to bring my yarn around, and this is going to be my new first stitch. So that's going to be 1. And you see, you can then pop that out because you skipped those 6 stitches, and that's going to be where your arm's going to be. So now I'm going to work my 6 stitches around to 3, 4, 5, 6. So you see how you have to like add that one stitch to compensate for where it is, because if you don't do it, you're going to end up with like a twisted piece. So the stitches would be, the arms wouldn't exactly be on the sides. So sometimes when you're working with the amigurumi, you have to take into account that spiral and that shifting stitches. But when I do manage to get this up there, I will put that in the notes so that you know that, and so that it explains it in very much detail. But now that I've done my 6 stitches across the front, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches across the front, For the second arm, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I'm going to skip those 6 stitches, and I'm going to once again come over and I'm going to work the last 6 stitches. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now when you look at the piece, you have the eyes in the front, and you have the arms in the side, and all we did to make him a giraffe was elongate his neck just a little bit. And it doesn't have to be super long, because again, it's a doll, a toy, and if you were to look at a giraffe in the store, it wouldn't have a super long neck. It would just have a slightly elongated neck, so that it's almost like an illusion, like your eyes and your brain play tricks on you. So you see that the neck is slightly longer, and that registers as a giraffe in your brain. I don't know exactly the technical terms for that anymore, but so sweet, so sturdy looking. They are. I try to make them all sturdy looking. So if you just joined, same pattern. Same basic pattern. Worsted weight, same basic pattern. It's just all like basic amigurumi. So I'm going to do the same doll. The only thing I did was add some neck rows here. I do like to make them sturdy because I want some kid to play with it. I want somebody to love it until it's like in pieces. So I do try to make them as sturdy as I can. Alright, so now that I've separated the arms, I'm going to increase around on the body. So I'm going to go from 12 stitches to 16 stitches. Oh no. So I'm going to do 2 single crochets, then increase, because I don't want him quite to 18 stitches. I think the legs would be a little bit too long, so I'm going to do 16. So 2, and increase, and then I'll show you how I start the legs. Increase, 1, 2, and increase, and my increase landed where it was supposed to be, so I really don't have to count. I know I have my 16 stitches. Now, because you already compensated for where the arms are, and you only did 2 more rows, you're pretty much where you need to be for the legs. So you have 16 stitches here. You're going to do 8 stitches for the first leg, 8 stitches for the second leg, and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to single crochet 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to skip the 8 stitches for the second leg, and then you're going to bring that around to work it this way. So let me show you. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then that's going to be the front part of the first leg. So you only want to work the first leg. So you're going to skip the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You're going to skip the 8 stitches for the second leg, and you're just going to bring your hook around and single crochet in the last 4 from these. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you finish the first round of the leg. And you can see how now that you've drawn it together like that, you've got 2 holes for the legs, 2 holes for the arms, you're going to finish the first leg, and then you're going to go back and you're going to just reattach your yarn, and you're going to do the same, you're going to follow the pattern for the same leg. So for this leg, after I've done 8, I'm going to do another round of 8. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So my leg really only has 2 rows. And then after those 2 rows, excuse me, you're going to do some increases for the toes. So I'm going to look for the 3 stitches in front, and I'm just going to take those 3 stitches just like I have the pattern written. And the pattern written is single crochet in the first stitch. And this is the pattern from my website. And then the 3 stitches in front, I'm going to increase in each one of those. So that would be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I'm going to finish around. So adding 3 stitches to 8 would give me 11. 8, 9, 10, 11. And I'm back to the beginning, and you can see how it's starting to bump out for that toe. So the last, not the last row, second to last row is going to be, I'm going to single crochet 2 stitches, and then once again, you might want to pull these just so you can make sure you see some definition in those stitches. It's hard with the blanket yarn. But I did my first 2 stitches, and now I'm going to increase in the next 3 stitches again. And actually, see, this is what I mean by amigurumi. If I look at it, it kind of looks like the 3 middle stitches are over here. So I think I want to add another stitch before I do my increases for my toes, just to kind of make sure I get my toes in the front. So now I'm going to increase, so I've done 3 stitches, I'm going to increase in 3. So it's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and finish around 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So 11 plus the 3 increases would be 14, and you can see how it, you can see that, makes like a foot and a toe. That was really the last row of this. Next, I'm just going to go around and I'm going to decrease 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now for the last increase, when I'm going to draw something closed like this, for the last, or decrease, I'm sorry, for the last decrease, if I'm going to draw something closed like this to make my ball, the last decrease I'm actually going to just do as a slip stitch, not a single crochet. And then I'm going to cut my yarn. And be thankful that I'm not working around the outside of that yarn anymore. I'd much rather work a center pull. And then I'm going to take my fluff and just start stuffing them just a little more, just so I can handle them a little bit better. So I can stuff down into the body through the armholes. You can keep stuffing until you do the very last arm. The very last arm, you kind of have to have them all stuffed the way you want them before you do that, finish up that very last arm, because that'll be the last hole. And oh, there's my needle. My needle is in my pincushion that my daughter, who learned how to crochet when she was before 10, made me this little turtle pincushion. And I love it because my big darning needles fit into it. Just, daily chatter. So, okay, so now that I made that slip stitch, I don't have to tie it off in a knot, because I'm going to tie it off in a knot after I draw this foot closed. And then I'll stuff this foot, and you'll get to see how the toe pops. And then I'm going to just draw him closed tightly. And again with my glue, I know I like to tie a knot. And to tie a knot, I'll show you, this is my favorite way to tie a knot, especially when I'm doing knots like this. I would just find another loop somewhere and get my crochet hook through it, just anywhere on there. Like, here's my end. Just find one loop to put my crochet hook through close to it, and you can pull up a chain 1, a chain 2, pull your end through, and slide your knot down, and that knots it enough. It ties a knot. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to tuck my end inside and then stuff him so you can see what he looks like. And again, utilize your holes here while you have them. So I'm going to take him and finish stuffing him a little bit so he looks... Now you could, if you want to, and this is where you, once you learn your basics, this is where you get into using your own creativity. If you really wanted to, you could take the bottom couple rounds of the feet and change colors. You could take the bottom rounds of the hands, and you could make them different colors. Like, you could make the brown on the bottom of the feet instead, but I'm just making this one all one because I'm just doing simple, basic technique learning for amigurumi. I was always afraid to do it. I always did like blankets and things. We never did. And I'm going to shove this all the way up into his head so I don't have to work through the neck too much. We always did like blankets, granny squares, sweaters, like the stuff that's actually really popular now, like the granny square sweaters and skirts and dresses and things like that, because it was in the 70s. Those were the things that we did. Like, you really didn't make plushies or stuffed animals. If you did, you just kind of quilted them together. Like, you took granny squares and you just put your granny squares, side by side and make like a pixelated animal or whatever. But I am going to I will stuff the neck pretty firm so it doesn't flop too much. But for right now, I just want to show you how I'm going to stuff this leg. And it's not a hard pattern. Like once you've done it, like I know I've sat here to do this for the past hour and a half to show you guys. But to sit and just do one of the basic dolls, itself, if I'm just sitting here mindlessly just doing it without thinking, it would end up being about an hour for me to do the doll part, and then maybe about an hour for me to do the pieces, the accessory pieces, and put them on. But you can see, and I'm just going to stuff this tail down in there because why not? So you can see how at this point, and I will probably finish this one and start another one to this point tomorrow, so I can have one finish to show you, and then show you putting the rest of the pieces on. But you can see how you're going to put the arms here. So you'll put the arms there, but you've got the elongated neck, which is going to make it look more like a giraffe. And then I'll put little horns on them, and little ears on them, little snout on them. But that's how you would take that basic pattern, and that's how you would make it into a giraffe. Again, I will tell you that it's just one basic amigurumi doll. Thank you for everybody that's joined. Thank you for all the participation. I appreciate it. One basic amigurumi doll on my website. I have different pieces to make different things out of them, also listed on my website. My website is not a blog site full of advertisements and clickbait. It's just simply, it's basically my gallery page, so that vendors or people can go look at past things that I've done. There's a link in my link tree that takes you directly to this pattern. Eventually, I will get the notes for the giraffe. I do have a shop site if anybody's interested. It doesn't seem like anybody's ever interested. I don't know if any of you guys else have shops. Why don't you DM me some tips and tricks, because I can't get anybody to go to my shop sites. But the patterns, I don't mind giving the patterns away for free. Sometimes if it's really elaborate, like I do have the fish bag pattern. I do have that published in for sale, because that was a really elaborate pattern, and it took me over a month full time just to sit and do that pattern and write it and get all the pictures and go around it a couple times and make sure it was right. But in the meantime, thank you for joining me. The beginning of my giraffe. Tomorrow I'll show you finished, and hopefully have another one just like this, so I can show you how I finish off the pieces and then what he's going to look like when he's all done. And that is how I'm going to turn basic. Amigurumi is very, very basic. All starts out with one piece, and it's all how you want to put it together and what you want to add to it to make it more personalized. My bell's ring. Thanks for joining me, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow.